Call the meeting to order. Call the roll.
Trustee Healy.
Here.
Trustee Katsinas.
Here.
Trustee Milani.
Here.
Trustee Compass.
Here.
Trustee Reardon.
Here.
Trustee Radashevsky.
Here.
Mayor Pico.
Here.
Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Approval of the December 18th, 2023 Committee of the Whole minutes.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Katsinas.
I move to approve the minutes of the regular meeting of the Committee of the Whole of December 18th, 2023.
Second.
Call the roll.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Milani.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Radashevsky.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye.
Elevated tank number 8 and number 1 rehabilitation bid award.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Milani.
move to recommend to the Village Board to accept the base bid from Jetco Limited of Wakanda, Illinois for RFP 23-073 elevated water tanks number 8 and number 1 rehabilitation and award a contract in the amount of $2,850,311 plus a $150,000 contingency for a total amount not to exceed $3,311.
Second.
And correct me if I'm wrong, this is the second low bidder because the first low bidder is the one that didn't finish last year.
Correct.
Okay. Any other comments? Call the roll.
Trustee Milani.
Aye.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Radashevsky.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye.
Public Works Heavy Duty In-Ground Vehicle Lift Purchase and Installation.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Radashevsky.
I move to recommend to the Village Board to approve the use of Sourcewell contract number 013020-SKI for the purchase and installation of one Sturtle Coney Diamond 64-13, 64,000-pound capacity heavy-duty vehicle and equipment lift from Safety Lane Automotive Equipment for the amount of $267,614 plus a 10% contingency of $26,761.40 for a total not to exceed $294,375.40.
Second.
Any questions or comments?
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Compass.
just a quick question on this one, Joel. I noticed that we have two different lifts that were proposed and different, and I just want to make sure it's an apples to apples comparison as to the functionality of those lifts.
Yes, it was apple to apple.
Call the roll.
Trustee Radashevsky.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
I abstain. I've got a business interest with one of the bidders.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Milani.
Aye.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye.
Purchase of 7 Ford F-350 Super Duty crew cab trucks and 2 F-350 chassis cab trucks.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Reardon.
I move to recommend to the Village Board to approve the proposals from Sutton Ford of Matson, Illinois for the purchase of 7, as the clerk mentioned, 7 2024 Ford F-350 4x4 crew cab trucks for the amount of $388,269 and for 2 Ford 350 chassis cabs for the amount of $116,465 for a total amount not to exceed $504,743 per the quotes from Sutton Ford dated October 10th, 2023 and November 27th, 2023.
Second.
Any comments? And, yeah, 7, because if you remember, we budgeted so that we can get them. And we finally can get them, right?
Yes.
So
They're
so
ready.
what happens when the supply chain finally loosens up? So, call the roll.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Milani.
Aye.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Radashevsky.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye.
Purchase of 4 Ford Transit 250.
Lots of new toys for Joel. Is this something special, Joel? Sorry.
Mr. Chairman,
Trustee Compass.
I move to recommend to the village board to approve the proposals from Joe Rizzo Ford of Orland Park, Illinois, for the purchase of 4 2024 Ford Transit 250 vans for the amount of $55,276.03 each, for a total amount not to exceed $221,104.12 per quotes from Joe Rizzo Ford.
Second.
Any questions or comments? Same thing, right? We could finally get them.
Yes, it only takes about 3 or so years to get it.
But we kept rolling it all over knowing we would need them.
Yeah.
So call the roll.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Radiszewski.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye.
Village investment portfolio overview and direction.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Reardon.
I move to recommend to the village board to approve rebalancing the village's investment portfolio as follows. Reestablish a 3-year laddered portfolio with PMA with $5 million maturing every 6 months. Increase the long-term investment at PMA to $5 million. Increase investment with Hammond Investments to $10 million. Invest $5 million with a new banking institution to be selected by RFP. Target cash balances at BMO between $5 million and $10 million, and target PMA money market of $20 million to be reviewed and rebalanced every 6 months.
Second.
Do we have a presentation on this? Okay, great. Kevin, it's all yours.
All right, thank you. It's a pleasure to talk to you about our investment portfolio. I know it's not the most exciting thing to talk about, but it is for the finance world. So tonight I'm going to provide a real brief overview of what our current investment portfolio is and some historic performance, big picture wise, some issues and risks that we think about when we think about public investments, and some options that we have and some recommendations that we are providing tonight. So what you see before you is an overview of our investment portfolio by institution. So a bulk of our money you can see is in the green segment. That's at PMA Securities, that holds our bond money and a lot of our investable money that the village has throughout all of the other funds. We do have a portion invested with Hammond Investment Management, about 10% of our portfolio. We do have a small amount in Illinois funds. It's really small right now because we have recently liquidated a bunch of that and moved that into PMA. And then the blue segment is about 8% of our portfolio. That's the money that we have at BMO. BMO is our operating bank. So a lot of our day-to-day cash is sitting in that account. We use that to pay bills, make our payroll, that type of thing. So that is about 8.5% of our portfolio as of the date that we took this snapshot. So we do have two components that is actually investments that are generally, I say managed, but we invest in government securities, certificates of deposits, anything that's basically very secure. Our investment priorities are safety, liquidity, and yield. So our options are very small. We look at fixed income securities so that we can make sure that all of our invested funds are the highest security level to make sure we do not lose any of our money. It's preservation of principal. So a portion of our investment portfolio is with Hammond Investments, and we have $8.7 million there, and they have maturities through to about 2026. And that money is sitting there, and it gets reinvested. And what they do is when a maturity happens, they reinvest based on the current market conditions. And right now, the average yield is about 2.2% throughout that entire portfolio. On the PMA side, they have 3 different styles of investment that we have there. There's a money market. It's like a money market. It's called iPrime. I'll just simplify it by calling it a money market for today. That's where a bulk of our money is right now. And it's that way because when we started talking about reviewing the investment portfolio, we held off on making any moves on investing things longer term, that type of thing. So we did have a large $7.5 million maturity of some investments at the beginning of the year. So that's part of the $48 million that's sitting in our money market or our iPrime. And that's secure, and it's got a fluctuating daily rate. Right now it's a little over 5%, which is a very good rate that we've been getting over the last several months. They also have a longer-term investment, and that is generally pretty liquid. We just need a few days to get that money, but we have about $2 million there, so that is intended for a longer investment horizon. There's also a fixed income portfolio. There are some CDs and some other government agencies and securities. Again, we invest money for a term, and it gets matured, and then we can renew that or liquidate that money and use that if we need it when the maturity occurs. So just to take a snapshot, this is our overall investment income over the past several years. As you can see, the last 2 years, we've had a little bit more cash on hand, but more notably, the interest rate have been very much higher for the fixed income market. So we've definitely benefited. Our bond portfolios, our bond investments have benefited from that. So over the last 2 years, we've received $3 million and $2.5 million in investment income, which is definitely better than what we had seen in prior years when interest rates were down below 0.1%. So some of the things that we think about with our investment portfolio are concentration risk. You saw that large wedge that was PMA. That's a concern. We don't want to have all our eggs in one basket. So concentration risk says that we should have our money in different places. We also protect ourselves with our collateralization agreements. In the case of a bank or institution failure, then we are protected with that type of security in place. Also, interest rate projections. Interest rates for fixed incomes right now are pretty high over, considering the last several years. So we're in a daily rate is about a little over 5%. If we wanted to invest out over the next few years, we could get something a little over 4%. But as you can see in part of our portfolio, we're getting about a little over 2%. And that's because we've been locking in the rates, 2 years at a time, 3 years at a time, and holding that until that matures. That works great when you got a high interest rate environment, but when the interest rate's growing, it makes your returns look a little poorer. But when rates come back down, if you lock in those rates, then you're going to be doing better than what the current interest rates are at the time. So we think about where we are with interest rates and whether we think they're going to go up or going to go down. And where they are right now, all bets are that they probably will not go up too much higher. They probably will decline over the next term. We also think about duration. And duration, if you think about a daily rate, duration is 1 day. So your rate is locked in for that 1 day. But if you borrow money or if you invest money for a 2-year CD or something along those lines, then that rate is set for that amount of time. So we think about extending our duration in a high interest rate environment so that we can lock in those rates, we can set those rates and make sure that we're getting a good rate for a long period of time. The last thing is timing of the markets. We really try not to time the markets, and what that means, we don't try to pick a day where the rates are going to be super high or the next day avoid that it's going to be super low. We try to have a slow and steady measured approach and take a long-term view with our investment portfolio and make decisions in that way. So generally we have a few different options to consider. One is we can stay with the short-term duration, and would keep money in cash or the money market investments that we've talked about, and those are doing really well. So for the short term, I think that would probably not be a terrible strategy. However, if we want to take a longer view, we might want to reestablish our laddered portfolio and lock in those rates for the next several years, 2 or 3 years. Really get to lock in those over 4% rates that we probably can get with some CDs and some fixed income instruments. Also diversifying the portfolio. We talked about the concentration risk. We have some investments, a lot of investments at PMA, so we want to kind of spread that out just to make sure that we are spreading our portfolio throughout to combat the concentration risk. So I know this slide is a little bit busy, but the bar chart on the left is what our current investment portfolio is, and again, the big yellow section is what we have at PMA. Our recommendation is to move to what's on the right side, and that's really diversifying the portfolio. We want to reestablish our laddered portfolio at PMA with about $5 million maturing every 6 months, and then we'd evaluate and probably reinvest for another 3 years. Lock in those long rates and just get into a cycle where we're continuing to reinvest on a 3-year increment. We want to contemplate putting more dollars into the long-term investment. Long-term, that's supposed to do a little bit better than our daily rates. But again, that's diversifying our portfolio from our daily to our long-term. Also, continue to have money in that daily fund. That is performing well. So we want to keep about $20 million in that iPrime account, that money market account at PMA. We think between $5 and $10 million is probably a good amount to have sitting at our operating bank. We do get some investment income credit to offset some bank fees, and it just helps with our daily operations, helps manage our cash flow. We're also drafting a request for proposals for a new banking institution where we would invest about another $5 million, again, to diversify the banking institutions that we have invested. And that can be a local bank that has some involvement in the community, something along those lines. But that's something that we would bring back and select another institution in the coming months. And then we would continue to review and rebalance our portfolio based on this direction. And every 6 months at least, we would probably look at it more frequently than that. But if we were making some significant moves, then we would definitely take a look at that every 6 months. That's kind of an overview of the overall portfolio. Happy to answer questions or answer any comments that you may have.
Trustee Reardon.
Just for the people who might see this on video or watch it and think that we have, this, I don't know, $75, $180 million sitting there. This isn't money that we typically or really ever want to tap into. This is emergency funds. This is stuff, can you explain that just a little bit for the public who might think, why did you just borrow, $20 million in bonds to go build something or other, this or that? Can you explain the difference for us?
Sure. So part of that is the amount of money that we have borrowed. So that's money that's sitting there that is waiting to be spent for all of those vehicles and things like that. But yeah, it is rainy day funds. It's our fund balance, and that is utilized. That's our cushion that we utilize to function on a daily basis. Just last couple of years, property taxes in Cook County have been woefully delayed. And because we've had our fund balances and cash balances the way we haven't worried about that. There were other entities and agencies that were borrowing tax anticipation notes. We didn't have to contemplate that because we do have that healthy fund balance. So that is rainy day money, that is cushion money, and it's sitting where we have it invested for exactly that purpose.
Thank you.
And I think what's important to note is that some of that is contingency, fund, and it's a balance, and it's what we carry. So what's 20% that we carry, and we have over that, so it's $25 to $30 million. But some of it is rollover money that we've approved before, and so the projects are approved. The money's sitting there waiting to be spent, but the projects aren't done yet. Some of those are projects that are ongoing that we have, we took some notes out for or whatever. So that's what all that money is. So that money is spoken for going forward because we have $200 million in our budget for the next year, including, a significant amount of capital. What's that, about $150 million that's not our general fund?
Yeah.
Right? So a lot of that money is sitting there to pay for that, and that's like these trucks have been holding back for a few years. We've just rolled over that money and kept that money and kept investing it while we're waiting for those, rather than take them off and then have to go buy them at a later date and not have that money for the budget. So basically, we put that away for that. So that's for.
And this money is for all village funds, so it includes our significant funds in our water and sewer fund, our general fund, and recreation fund. All of those funds.
And then other rollovers, for example, we owe the state $4 million that they haven't billed us yet. So we have to maintain that money, and we have to keep rolling it over
We might as well make some interest on it.
Yeah.
Or wait. So, okay.
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Healy.
First of all, I'd like to say, Kevin, over the last couple of years, you've been transferring money from the checking account, which used to have a very high balance, and put it into these short-term investments, and you've made a lot of interest income on that, so, thank you for managing the money that way. It's the city, the village will benefit from that. And I've got a question that we've asked, and I don't think I've got the right answer. There's $4 million in a checking account for the police board. Whose duty is that to invest? The police board or this board?
You're talking about the 911, E911 fund?
A separate fund.
That's governed by the police, excuse me.
911 board.
E911 board. We are the agent of that money, but they make the decisions and directions on that.
So the 911 board is a tax that you pay. You pay your 911 tax on, I think, phone.
Yes.
What you pay. And the 911 tax goes into the 911 board. We don't ever see it. It's a separate, and it has specific things it can be used for. We're the controlling agency of that. Like Orland Hills, you remember the IGA we had, all of their 911 money goes to that board. And so, and we control that. That's part of that IGA, because we do detention and everything else for them. So some of our police vehicles, some of our, some of our communication stuff that we get through the police, the 911 board money covers outside of the village. So it's money that we don't have to generally tax.
Is there any reason why we shouldn't be investing that part, not all of it, but half of it, on a 5% times 2 million is 100,000?
Well, that's the 911 board's decision, and it's a joint board across multiple agencies, so we don't really have control over that.
And we'll, Kevin will reach out to the board and encourage them and give them contact information for our resources as well, so they can start looking at that. They do, there is a cash flow thing that they have to look at as well. Our radio system, new radio system, it's a couple $1 million, that's going to be coming out of that 911 fund as well. So there's some liquidity that they have to look at.
Right, but it's not going to be all paid on
Not
one
all,
day.
right,
It's going to be spread out over time, and
Yeah.
so I think if we can make the most on it, that would be great. And one more thing would be, in my accounting area and all that, we see where if boards don't pay attention to the cash and the finances and the investments, a lot of bad things can happen. So I hope this board can, give the due attention to where this is invested and how it's invested, and pay attention to the details. Thanks.
Mr. Chairman?
Trustee Malani.
Yeah, thank you for making sure, though, by the way, that we're not financing Joel's personal Lego set with big vehicles. But you laid this out as options, 3 different options, but it looks like you've kind of taken the best of all 3 and put it together, which I like. So we're kind of diversifying. We're getting some low risk yet good reward on the investments. So appreciate taking the time and putting this together. I think it's a good plan overall. So thank you.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Katsinas.
it was a great job explaining this, Kevin. Thank you. But if you could show the true yield, like the 2.2, does that include, is that the net after the fund cost? I mean, what is the cost to
Yes.
these?
That is after fees, yes.
After fees?
Yes.
Okay, that's the net return yield on it. Okay. Thank you.
And Kevin, good work, good presentation, and I think it's thoughtful in what we're doing, and obviously it helps to be taking advantage of the interest rates that we have now, and getting some income and not doing it at high risk for our liquid money makes sense. So thanks a lot. Call the roll.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Radiszewski.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye.
Strategic Annexations 2024 update.
Was that?
Ed has a presentation?
Okay.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor, other members of the board. This item before you tonight
I
is
want to blow that up a little bit so we can see each section. There you go.
Thank you. So again, this item is an update from originally the village began looking at unincorporated pockets of land in 2007, where they documented all of the properties that were eligible for unilateral annexation or annexation by ordinance by the village. and started a ranking criteria to see if it was beneficial to the community or what issues would happen if these properties were brought into the village. In 2021 and 2022, the village updated this annexation study and used a similar ranking criteria to develop the list that's displayed on the screen, where it prioritized the annexations by, we used green, yellow, and red, and if you scroll a little bit, you can kind of see, but it was basically the green and yellow were to pursue or neutral, and the red were annexed by agreement only. The differences between the rankings were, when you're looking at a property to annex, if there's one that offers a significant community benefit, or if it helps you fill in gaps in municipal services, then it would be a priority to annex as soon as possible. If there were issues with, let's say, drainage in the subdivision, or there were other infrastructure issues that the village would then be responsible for once they become part of the village, then you would reconsider that or not pursue annexation. And then finally, the annex by agreement only are properties that are very likely to be developed in some type of residential or commercial use. And the reason you would want to pursue the annexation agreement is because the village has no obligation to annex any piece of property. And when you're going to pursue a development, then you can negotiate different terms than you would if they already were in the village and had zoning and they had a right to certain development. In an annexation scenario, the village has a significant amount of opportunity to leverage infrastructure or anything that kind of would benefit the community as a whole for bringing this property into the village. So what basically, to give a little background, in terms of the unilateral annexation, what we're talking about here is eligibility is determined by a state statute, and it permits annexation when a contiguous unincorporated area that is contained of one or more properties is 60 acres or less and is surrounded by one or more villages and or boundaries therein. And when conducting a unilateral annexation, the village must annex the entire contiguous piece of property. They can't pick portions of it. At the time of the original study, the list that's up here, there were 47 properties. Since that time, some of those properties have been annexed naturally through other means. But right now, the 44 properties that remain, what has happened is the village notified all the property owners that were on this list. So every property owner got a letter initially. That letter was attached to the item, and I waited and collected the responses. From the people that responded, that 44 properties were notified, 36 did not respond. 8 property owners have met with the village to discuss the voluntary versus unilateral annexation. 1 annexation is pending in terms of they have agreed that they would like to move forward, but they have some permitting issues that they're working on with the county before they come into the village. And then 4 others would prefer not to annex, but are considering voluntary annexation. In the staff report itself, of those meetings that staff conducted, it gives a general overview of each property and what their preference is in terms of whether or not they want to pursue voluntary annexation or if they have no preference whatsoever. So in short, I guess the main issues for those that are not interested in annexation are the increased tax burden. First of all, that is a concern of all people, even those that are considering voluntary annexation, and staff explained to them the portion of the tax bill that they would be responsible for after annexation. And also, in most instances, the reason the village would pursue a unilateral annexation is because, in theory, there's services that unincorporated pockets of property are using that are not being paid for. So if they're utilizing any village services and they're in an unincorporated area, they're not paying the tax to the village to provide those services. And essentially, that's what we're looking at for this entire analysis. So the tax burden, the fear of new strict village regulations. So potentially there may be differences in the jurisdiction they're in, the county regulations versus the village. The village typically has more stringent zoning requirements and building requirements. So the staff made it clear that it wasn't retroactive, so they're not going to have to upgrade their properties, and if they choose to voluntarily annex, they can negotiate in the annexation agreement terms with which they come into compliance if there is an issue that needs to be corrected. And the only thing that would affect, the new regulations would only affect new development or anything that happened from the date they were annexed into the village moving forward. So it's not going back to anything that they've already done. And again, the last thing is that a lot of the homeowners and the residents that are against the unilateral annexation, they've been in these properties for a very long time. Sometimes generations of people have been here. They haven't consider themselves not to have utilized village services. Some of them are on well and septic, most of them are on well and septic. Some of them are adjacent to county or state right-of-ways, so they're not necessarily utilizing directly the village street to access their property, although they probably are using village streets on a daily basis to live in the town. So there's things like that. And really, they don't see any benefit to coming into the village. So that's the concerns that were raised. Those are the things the property owners responded to. And what we're doing now, I'm presenting this to the board to get some direction as to how you'd like us to move forward. We can move forward with the voluntary annexations. We can move forward with involuntary annexations of the properties. Regardless, with the list, we are going to prioritize, first of all, just the green and yellow properties from the annexation study. And we're also going to be prioritizing commercial properties first and any property that is already on village services. Because if we have to process 44 annexations, it's going to take some time. But this is now, I guess we're seeking feedback of how to move forward, and it's, I appreciate your feedback.
And if I could just, if the board recalls, in 2022, when staff went and updated this study, we had a similar discussion at a committee of the whole. And the direction at that time was, from the board, was seek voluntary annexation first. So as Ed had mentioned, letters were sent to all of these properties, and actually 2 rounds of letters were sent to all of these properties, offering the opportunity to negotiate for voluntary annexation. So at this point, as Ed mentioned, we're looking for direction whether to now pursue involuntary annexation so that we can close the gaps, the service gaps that exist in the most equitable way possible.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Rubin.
was the 2 letters, is that still a total of only 8 people who responded out of the 2 letters?
That's correct. The second round of letters was sent to the property owners that didn't respond, but we didn't get a response.
Okay, so 36 out of 44, 82% of them did not respond at all, one way or the other. So these complaints or issues that people have brought up, those are just from those?
Those are from the meeting, yes, the people that agreed
The 8 people who responded?
Yeah, correct. That is correct.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Radiszewski.
when were those letters sent?
I believe the letter was sent in May, and I don't have the date of the other.
So it's been several months.
Yes.
Any other questions? One thing I will state first is definitely want to focus on the commercial. And the commercial, in my opinion, we need to go ahead with ASAP.
Okay.
Because the county has demonstrated a disregard, if you will, for both counties, both Cook and Will, have shown a disregard for our zoning and what we, and the makeup of our town. So for example, basically any of those commercial properties could suddenly become a cannabis distribution center, which we have not approved. Any that have a liquor license could become a gaming establishment, and solely a gaming establishment, which is something that we've allowed gaming, but only in specific, in restaurants as well. So those have to be an immediate priority. I think the residential is, it gets a little tricky, right? In that, in some cases, we probably generate a lot of services. In other cases, we don't generate as many. Also, we have compliance issues with both Cook County and Village Code as far as, whether it's trash, whether it's, maintaining their property, those types of things. And a lot of times the county doesn't enforce as the village would enforce. If the county was more cooperative, we'd probably feel a little differently, but they're not. Additionally, obviously, the county, and I'm sure the chief could comment on this, but pretty much anything that happens inside our village limits, we can pretty much count on the fact that the county will not be there to handle any public safety issues. Right? Unless we call them to help, they'll back us up, and then we'll be the ones that are there. We'll be the first responders. We'll be dealing with all the issues. They'll come there. They might be responsible for investigating something that happened in a Cook County house, but in an unincorporated area. But we will be the ones that it'll be our officers that'll be there. Our officers that are providing safety. It's our officers that are patrolling the areas, not Cook County. Is that?
Yeah, we typically get there first, and then the county would assist.
You want to come up to the microphone?
So typically, we would respond. We usually get there first, and then we'd be waiting for county to arrive on scene and take the report and do any follow-up that would be needed. But we're typically patrolling that area. County's out there, but not as much as we are.
Right. Okay. So those are the issues that we have in the residential. Now, I don't see anyone signed in here to speak, but I'm assuming that most of the people that are in here are here for this issue. So if you do want to speak, normally we do it after, at the end of the meeting, but since I'm sure you're here to speak about this, we'll be happy to allow you to come up and speak. The only thing is that anyone that wants to speak, just say who you are, where you live, and then also you have 3 minutes. So if you do want to speak, feel free to come up to the mic. If you don't, that's fine as well, but just want to offer that opportunity.
I'm one of the people who responded to the letter, and I believe I only received one letter. George, I'm not sure what gaps you're trying to close. You mentioned closing gaps. Could you elaborate on that?
Sure. So,
So first, just make all your comments, and then George,
All right,
they'll just answer. all
When
those.
this first came up, I obviously went around trying to figure out what was going on, and I got, a hold of the Civic Federation's study that was done about a decade ago that recommended that municipalities incorporate unincorporated lands adjacent to them, as Ed already mentioned. And there was a lot of, I would say that their conclusions were based on very little evidence. I heard it mentioned here also that we're using services that we're not paying for. I can't think of one thing that I'm using from Orland Park. My tires may touch one of your roads once in a while, but I live on 82nd Avenue and I use it just to scoot out of town most of the time. I don't shop in town. I shop mostly in Will County. I don't even drive around that much this place. I don't use your library. I don't use your swimming pool. Tell me what I'm using that I should be pulled into the city for. Somebody tell me. Okay, nothing. I'm in the yellow box up there, and I do not want to be incorporated. And I don't know if neutral means I'm neutral or you guys are neutral, but I am vehemently against being part of the city. So, I also gave Ed a study that was done in Maryland, and I'm surprised it's not here because it's germane to the topic. In Maryland, a small town was considering this kind of stuff, and they found that the tax rate for the individuals already in the town goes up as you add more residential properties, not ultimately, sharing the burden as a lot of people might think. Now, Ed, I don't know why that wasn't included here. I think it's something that's important and it should have been considered. That's it. I hope I didn't go over.
And can we get your name too? We need it
Oh,
for
I'm
the record.
sorry. James Gosnell, and he's still got us listed as 2 properties. There's 2 5 acres listed there. I can't see it right now.
Okay.
But I'm in
That's good
that
enough.
yellow box there.
Okay.
There it
Thank
is,
you
number
for-
40. There's actually 2 different properties. They're listed as one, though.
Okay. Thank you for your comments. Is there anyone else who would like to comment?
My name is Paul Wolfram. I'm a lifetime resident, 4th generation of the area. My grandparents owned and farmed quite a lot of the land from 80th Avenue to 84th or 86th Avenue, actually, on either side of 143rd. What I'm living on right now is the last parcel of that farmland. It's a 5-acre parcel, your area number 39. The parcel number is 167. Ed's still got it posted as annex. From what I understood, that's not cast in stone yet, and that's why I'm here. I'm 72 years of age. I live there and own it with two siblings who are also about my same age. We're all retired on fixed income, and the property has one single-family home on 5 acres. It's developed around it, the perimeter. It faces 80th Avenue, which was the old driveway. I don't see where we're adding any cost to the village by living there. We recognize that eventually the parcel will probably have to be sold and developed, but for right now, I enjoy the property as it is. It gives me something to do with my retirement time. The neighbors around the perimeter also enjoy openness that it offers the whole neighborhood, really. And on that basis, I'd ask that the village reconsider the idea of annexing it. If the taxes go up, that would certainly change our ability to maintain the property as a single-family owner, and it would certainly then have to be inevitably sold and developed. So I don't see that would be a detriment to the village right now, because I don't recognize where we're adding any extra cost. As far as the police protection and whatnot, there have been several instances where the Orland police, as was said, they may come and investigate if a call is made, but they'll tell us flat out that the county is is the police force that takes precedent and would have jurisdiction on it. Fortunately, the neighborhood is such that really never occurs to such a great extent that it's been an issue. But again, I just ask the village to reconsider any idea of annexing the parcel on account of it would impact my place of living, my domicile, if you will, and in a negative way that I don't think I can recover from. That's
Thank you for your
about it.
comments. Is there anybody else?
Hello. My name is Mark McMahon, and I live at 13705 82nd Avenue in Orland Park. I just be quick. This is some good news and bad news. The bad news is, we all know that the annexation is going to raise our taxes. Right now, about 80% of our taxes go to the school district. The rest of it goes to other services, mosquito control, this and that. All my bills for my business in Orland Park and my home and my water bills, we mail to the village of Orland Park. So, I mean, I can agree with this gentleman about the services that, I don't know what I would gain on my property annexing into the village of Orland Park. My boys are 38, 37, and 30. We went through OIA, Pioneer, all the Sandberg, benefited from the benefits. I love this village. I've been here when there was 8,000 people, about whatever now. So I just don't see any benefit to me to annex my property into the village. The taxes, as we all know in Cook County, have gone through the roof. I just put a $130,000 tax bill in the mail for my business. My home, when I moved there 40 years ago, was about $1,500. Now it's about $15,000. So I'm just trying to control it any way I can. I know that the village does the best to do services and all that. But I just don't see what I would benefit from doing it. But I'm not here to say that I'm not doing it. I'm just trying to give you guys my insight of what's going on with everything. That's the bad news. The good news is that if I get arrested, I go to Tinseltown instead of Cook County. Or it used to be Maywood. So that's the good thing. But I just want to say that I do love this village. I've been here my whole life. I grew up here. I have my business here. I like the board. I like you guys better than the old board. I like the building department's been great to us through the years, and I just want you to think of perspective from both sides of the aisle, and just this theory of what I would get from annexing my property into the village. I just don't know what I would get, but I just wanted to voice my opinion for what it was worth, and thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mark. Anyone else? Well, thank everyone for their comments, and I think George's, George, I'll try and answer the question for you, and then you can fill in. But the issue is, if we surround a property, is that we're providing police service. There's no question about it, because the county's not going to be there. Now, the county will come and investigate, but if something happens, it's going to be our officers walking into the shooting gallery. It's going to. The county comes with a map on the steering wheel. So, yeah, our guys are there, and they're patrolling as well, so their presence, there's a lot more presence, and our police is, what, 60% of our budget or something like that? So it's a pretty sizable part of our budget. So we do have police. The other thing is we are responsible for stormwater and all of those other things around you, so, and not saying that these properties in particular are causing an issue, but we're dealing with all those stormwater management issues that we do deal with for the village to handle all those problems. So when your neighbor, somebody near you floods or whatever, all of those things we're handling to help it helps make your properties better. And it varies, I understand, it varies by property. There's no question about that, which is why we have them ranked in different areas on all of that. As far as the tax rates in the village going up for everyone else, they're not going to go up for everyone else in these cases, because these houses already exist and we're already providing services. What you're talking about is if the general rule, if you add a development, each of those homes are going to take more in services than they're going to pay taxes for. In the case where we're providing all the services around it, we're providing all of the police, for example, that's not the case, because those are already there. It's already something that we're doing, so it doesn't change that much. I think the board's position on so George, did I get that right?
Yes.
Okay.
And then there's also growth management as well.
Right. And so, there's other issues with the county, and so, unfortunately, we have a county that can do a lot of different things. Like, for example, if you have 5 acres, all of a sudden there can be a development, and we can't do anything about it if we haven't annexed it already. If we haven't annexed it already, then that development has to go through us. So those become issues. So the county can basically do whatever they want. We've had homes that, we've had properties that, for example, that the county went and changed from R1 to I2. Okay, and anyone who knows the difference in R1 is not a very highly dense residential zoning. I2 is trucking. Not to say that they'd allow that on a half-acre lot, but the point being is, and this lot's what, 5 acres-ish that they allowed that on? So, so we've seen that before. So that's what the village is trying to make sure we protect the integrity of the village for everyone, and that's why we'll prioritize these. I think these things, as Ed said, I think take a lot of time. From my perspective, I think we do want to square off our borders. It makes it a lot easier for snow plowing, for all of that stuff that we're doing, and plus the county doesn't do a particularly good job. With that said, as I mentioned before, first and foremost, without question, anything that can be commercial, we have to move forward with, and we're not going to allow, dispensaries, gaming establishments, and I'm talking about establishments built just for gaming. Okay, that's the kind of things, and when we already know that there's one that's out there that's on this list, that's potentially looking to do just that. So it's those commercial properties that we need to focus on first. I think in the meantime, my personal opinion, in the meantime, residential, you should continue to work with the voluntary annexes, which also take time. And then once those are done, then we can start, and we can continue to have the conversation about the voluntary annexing, because in some ways it does make properties more valuable to be annexed in the village already. I understand the concerns as well. And I will say, relative to all your other taxes, Orland's pretty low. It's a very low percentage of your taxes. So, and I realize some of you don't use services. There's others that do use services. They do pay extra for those services. Those are services you wouldn't have to pay extra for example. It probably didn't happen, Mark, for your kids, but Now any one of those kids, they have to pay a higher fee for the number of kids they have that are not in Orland Park. So, I mean, I think from our perspective, that those are the ones that are the priority for me, is commercial first, and then, and then obviously the voluntary residential. And then I think from there, we would be identifying the residential. First ones for me would be ones where we have problems, like if we have code enforcement problems that the county doesn't assess or address. Those would be problems. If we have problems where it's potentially causing flooding or something else with neighbors or things like that, that we have to address. That's the ones that I would focus on, that I would recommend focusing on first. I don't know how the board feels about this.
Mr. Chairman.
Trustee Malani.
Kind of thinking along the same lines of kind of prioritizing, but also there's a lot of stuff on here that comes up as, undeveloped or, things that we wouldn't be impacting anybody else if we annexed. I think those are things that we could do kind of in parallel. While they may not generate revenue now, they maybe give us potential to develop something in the future. So, while, we have people that are quite comfortable being unincorporated, let's let them be unincorporated for a little bit while longer, and we could focus on, some of these, like the utilities, like for the ComEd stuff. Why not go after that? Why not go after undeveloped land where we could maybe build a couple more new houses and be part of Orland Park already? We won't have to worry about this later. So it gives us some opportunity for growth, but maybe in different ways.
Well, for sure, undeveloped land, because we don't want the county building things to the county codes. Go ahead.
The one thing, if undeveloped land that's fully surrounded by the village, that no other municipality has an opportunity by statute to annex, there's no threat that it would be developed, it could still be, it wouldn't be a threat from a different municipality.
Well, it can't be developed, but if it's zone residential, they can put a house on it, and they can
Correct.
put a house on it that doesn't meet any of our codes. Correct?
I just wanted to clarify for the
Yeah.
other municipalities.
So, I understand that, but I think we want to make sure, and we know that does happen. So I think I think those are the ones that we should be focusing on before we worry about residential where there's no issues.
Understood.
Right. I guess, to my point, it's, people that are willing to stay unincorporated, that don't have code enforcement issues, that are happy with the services they're getting, I think those are probably, in my eyes, the lowest priority. Let them,
We'd rather see them come in voluntarily.
right. So, focus on the ones, the low-hanging fruit, the things that maybe we can't acquire easily, and then we'll come back to this when we have the opportunity.
I can one more comment here. And one thing too is that I think that everyone.
Normally I don't, but I will let you.
Half of, 30 seconds, is that 30 years ago.
Is that
when-
possible for
Yes,
you, Mark?
Mayor, 30 years ago when they developed my property, I sold to Paul McNaught next to me. They made him put in bike trails along the east end of 82nd Avenue that are going nowhere. And they've been there now for going on.
Well, we're addressing that with a
Yeah,
different
but
project.
I'm just saying,
I don't
when we
wanna
get
talk
into
about
this
that
thing,
tonight.
we have to get rid of these bike trails that are on our property that come and go to nowhere. Because no one ever, one person.
We have a project that regarding bike trails, and you could talk to Krishit about all the details on that.
Asphalt off our property because they don't, they're.
Well, the issue with bike trails in general is that we want to have the bike trails to connect to other bike trails. I think in your particular case, there's some other issues, and there's some that, there is one that's getting removed, I believe, right, Joel, this year or next?
Yeah, and just quickly, because they put the bike trails in, there's a water meter here and then the bike
Yeah,
trails.
we're aware of that whole,
There's
that
people
that whole street, we're aware of it. You're welcome.
Mr. Mayor,
Trustee Healy.
Can I get an estimate about how much it costs to annex a property from our end?
So and that's where Ed mentioned that it's a little time consuming, so it's not going to happen overnight. What we do have to do is a title search, create a plat of survey, and some notifications. So depending on the size, I don't know, a plat is what, $1,500?
It's a good estimate, yeah.
Yeah, so if $2,000, let's just round up, $2,000 for a normal size. I think any ones that are high acreage would be more.
It's probably a few grand in general. That's what you're looking at.
Okay, thanks.
Mr. Mayor?
Trustee Katsinas.
I agree with Trustee Malani. I don't think anyone wants to force you into doing anything you really don't want to do. But I think it's really important, your property value has increased as a result of Orland's codes. Probably don't, but at some point in time, if those codes weren't in place, I'm sure the price tag on your property, even unincorporated, wouldn't be worth what it is. Nor would we have the village we have. There's rules and regulations, and I understand. I certainly understand you, and I respect personal property rights. However, if you look at the big picture, I think there is some gain that unincorporated has gotten from people that are in the village. If everybody had it their way, they wouldn't want to be in any village because they don't want the taxes. But look at all the services we have, and, especially our police department, our parks. Granted, maybe you don't need that, but it definitely adds to the value of the community of which you surround, which impacts your price as well.
Well, no, we're not going to continue to have debate because this is about just comments and then the board. And normally, comments come after we speak. So just don't want to continue to have debate back and forth because that's not what it's about. The debate is here. We hear, depending on the call, the county may show up. But I can tell you right now that our police, they patrol the areas. If they're the first ones there, depending on what's called in, they're the ones that are there first. It happens all the time. Additionally, the people who live in the unincorporated areas, I think Trustee Katsinas brought up a good point. All of our parks, they're all available. Right, people get to use those, and no one's paying for those except for our residents paying taxes. So so we understand the situation, but also from the village's perspective, and the 60,000 people who live here that surround those areas, the stuff they pay for are things that most of the unincorporated areas do benefit pretty substantially. Not everybody, but most do. So those are things we got to look at. But as I said, and I think the board agrees, that we focus on commercial, we focus on anything that could be commercial, the undeveloped areas, because we don't want Cook County developing them, and then focus on anything after that, it's residential areas where we have issues. In the meantime, we continue to try and get voluntary annexation. So, is there anybody on the board that disagrees with that? So, is that clear enough for you, George?
Yes.
Okay, great.
Non-scheduled citizens and visitors.
Did we just, anybody else that wants to speak about something else?
Mr. Chairman?
Great. I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Call roll.
Trustee Compass.
Aye.
Trustee Katsinas.
Aye.
Trustee Healy.
Aye.
Trustee Malani.
Aye.
Trustee Reardon.
Aye.
Trustee Radiszewski.
Aye.
Mayor Pico.
Aye. We're adjourned. We'll start the next meeting at 7:10. Just give us a little bit of time.